The bus screeched to a halt, kicking up dust that stung Eli's eyes as he stepped into the blistering Arizona heat. His father's last words, "You're no son of mine," echoed like a gunshot in his mind, each syllable a fresh wound. At 19, Eli had crossed the border from Mexico into the U.S., not just to escape a country, but to flee a home that had rejected him for who he loved. The Greyhound station in Nogales was a crumbling relic, its faded signs pointing to nowhere. Eli clutched his worn backpack, the only thing he'd taken when his father threw him out. Inside were a change of clothes, a photo of his late mother, and a dream of a life where he could be himself. He'd heard of San Francisco, a city where people like him gay, proud, unashamed, could breathe freely. But with only $47 in his pocket and a Border Patrol truck idling nearby, that dream felt as distant as the stars starting to prick the desert sky. He trudged toward a diner across the street, its neon sign flickering open 24/7. The bell above the door jangled as he entered, and the smell of greasy burgers and coffee hit him like a wave. A few truckers glanced up, their eyes lingering on his dusty clothes and brown skin, then returned to their plates. Eli slid into a booth, his stomach growling, but he ordered only a coffee $2, a small dent in his survival fund. "You look like you're running from something," a voice said, low and gravelly. Eli's head snapped up. Across from him sat a man, maybe in his 50s, with a weathered face and graying hair tucked under a baseball cap. His flannel shirt was rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms tanned from years under the sun. He wasn't smiling, but his eyes held a quiet curiosity. "I'm not running," Eli lied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just moving on." The man nodded, as if he'd heard that line before. "Name's Tom. I run a garage a few miles out. You got a place to stay tonight?" Eli stiffened. He'd heard stories of strangers offering help, only to demand something in return. But Tom's gaze was steady, not predatory. "I'll figure it out," Eli said, sipping his coffee to hide his nerves. Tom leaned back, studying him. "Nogales ain't kind to folks with no plan. I got a couch. No strings. You look like you could use a night to think." Eli wanted to say no, to keep his walls up, but exhaustion weighed heavier than pride. He nodded, and Tom tossed a few bills on the counter for his own meal. "Let's go, kid." The drive to Tom's garage was silent, the desert stretching endlessly under a moonless sky. Tom's truck smelled of oil and leather, and Eli kept his backpack on his lap, a shield against the unknown. The garage was a squat building with a sign that read Tom's Auto Repair, surrounded by rusted car parts and a single gas pump. Inside, Tom pointed to a worn couch in a small back room. "It's not much, but it's yours for tonight." Eli lay awake that night, the hum of a distant highway his only company. He thought of his father, a man hardened by years of labor and tradition, who'd called Eli's love a sin. He thought of his mother, who died when he was 12, her gentle voice the only softness he'd ever known. And he thought of Tom, a stranger who'd offered him a couch when the world had turned its back. Morning came too soon. Sunlight streamed through a cracked window, and Eli found Tom already at work, wrench in hand, fixing a pickup. "You know cars?" Tom asked without looking up. "Some," Eli said. His father had taught him the basics, back when they still spoke. I can learn. Tom grunted, tossing him a rag. Clean the tools. Earn your breakfast. Eli worked quietly, his hands moving over wrenches and screwdrivers, finding comfort in the routine. Tom didn't ask questions, didn't pry, but his presence was steady, like an anchor. By noon, Eli had cleaned half the garage, and Tom handed him a plate of eggs and toast. They ate in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was the kind of quiet that felt safe. Days turned into weeks. Eli stayed, not because he had nowhere else to go, but because Tom never asked him to leave. He learned to fix carburetors, change oil, and laugh at Tom's terrible jokes. The garage became a refuge, a place where Eli could be himself without fear. But he couldn't shake the ache for San Francisco, for a community that would embrace him fully. And he couldn't ignore the growing questions about Tom: why he lived alone, why he'd taken in a stranger. One evening, as they closed up shop, Eli found a photo tucked in a toolbox. Tom, younger, with a boy about Eli's age, both smiling at a fishing pier. Your son? Eli asked, holding up the picture. Tom's face tightened, but he didn't look away. Yeah. Jake. Haven't seen him in years. What happened? Eli asked, sensing the weight behind the words. Tom sighed, sitting on a stool. He told me he was gay. I didn't take it well. Said things I can't take back. He left, and I don't know where he is now. Eli's heart sank. He saw his own father in Tom's regret. But he also saw something else: a man who'd learned from his mistakes. You miss him, Eli said. Not a question. Every damn day, Tom replied, his voice rough with emotion. I was a fool. Thought I was protecting him, but I just pushed him away. Eli set the photo down gently. Maybe you can still find him. Tom shook his head. Too late for that. But you're here. And I ain't making the same mistake twice. That night, Eli lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling. He'd crossed a border to escape rejection, but found something unexpected: a stranger who saw him. Not as a sin, but as a person. For the first time in months, Eli felt a flicker of hope. Not just for San Francisco, but for a life where he could belong. Eli's days at Tom's garage settled into a rhythm, each one blending into the next like the hum of tires on asphalt. The work was hard grease under his nails, sweat soaking his shirt, but it was honest. For the first time since his father's rejection, Eli felt useful, like he was building something instead of running from it. Tom taught him more than just car repair. He showed Eli how to listen to an engine stutter, how to feel the pulse of a machine and know what it needed. Cars are like people, Tom said one afternoon, wiping oil from his hands. They'll tell you what's wrong if you pay attention. Eli nodded, wondering if Tom was talking about more than just engines. The garage wasn't just a workplace. It was a crossroads. Truckers, locals, and drifters passed through, each with a story. One day, a young woman named Mia stopped by with a busted radiator. She had bright purple hair and a laugh that filled the room. You two run this place like a family, she said, watching Eli and Tom bicker over a torque wrench. Eli froze at the word family. He hadn't had one since his mother died, and his father's rejection had sealed that loss. But Mia's comment lingered, stirring something in him. Tom caught his expression and changed the subject. but the moment stuck. That night, Eli found himself opening up. They were eating takeout burritos on the garage steps, the desert air cool against their skin. "My dad, he didn't just kick me out," Eli said, staring at the stars. "He said I was dead to him, because I told him I'm gay." Tom set his burrito down, his jaw tight. "That's a heavy thing to carry," he said. "My boy, Jake, I wasn't much better." Told him he was confused, that he'd grow out of it. "Worst thing I ever did." Eli looked at him, seeing the pain etched into Tom's face. "You ever try to find him?" "Tried," Tom said. "Sent letters. Called numbers that don't work anymore. He's gone. Like he doesn't want to be found." He paused, then added, "I don't blame him." Eli didn't know what to say. He wanted to hate Tom for pushing his son away, but he couldn't not when Tom had given him a place to stay, a purpose. Instead, he said, "I'm heading to San Francisco soon. There's a community there. People like me." Tom nodded, but his eyes were distant. "Good for you, kid. You deserve that." The next morning, a new customer rolled in a sleek convertible driven by a guy named Lucas. He was in his 20s, with sharp cheekbones and a confident grin that made Eli's heart skip. "Car's acting up," Lucas said, leaning against the hood. "Think you can fix it?" Eli felt his face heat up as he nodded. Lucas was everything Eli had imagined when he dreamed of San Francisco Open. Unapologetic, with a rainbow pin on his jacket. As Eli worked on the car, Lucas lingered, asking questions about the garage. About Eli. "You don't seem like you're from here," Lucas said, his tone teasing but kind. "Just passing through," Eli said, focusing on the engine to hide his nerves. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "To where?" "San Francisco," Eli admitted, and Lucas's grin widened. "That's my city. You'll love it. It's free." Eli's stomach flipped. For the first time, San Francisco felt real, not just a dream. Lucas stayed until the car was fixed, and when he left, he slipped Eli a piece of paper with his number. "Call me when you get there," he said, winking before driving off. Eli tucked the number into his pocket, his heart racing. But when he turned, he saw Tom watching from the garage door, his expression unreadable. "You trust that guy?" Tom asked later, as they cleaned up. "He seems genuine," Eli said, unsure why Tom's tone felt heavy. "Just be careful," Tom said. "Not everyone's what they seem." Eli wanted to argue, but something in Tom's voice stopped him. He thought of the photo of Jake, of the pain Tom carried. Maybe Tom was just protective, or maybe he saw something Eli didn't. Either way, Lucas's number burned a hole in Eli's pocket, a promise of the life he'd crossed a border to find. As weeks passed, Eli saved every dollar he earned, hiding it in a tin under the couch. He was close to $300, enough for a bus ticket and a week in San Francisco. But the closer he got, the heavier his heart felt. Tom had become more than a boss, more than a stranger. He was the father Eli wished he'd had, one who didn't flinch when Eli mentioned Lucas or talked about his dreams. One night, a storm rolled in, thunder shaking the garage. Eli found Tom sitting alone, staring at Jake's photo. You ever think about what you'd say to him? Eli asked. Tom's voice was barely audible. I'd say I'm sorry. That I love him. No matter what. Eli's throat tightened. He wanted to tell Tom to keep trying, to never give up on Jake. But he also wanted to run to San Francisco, to Lucas, to a life where he could love without fear. The pull of both worlds tore at him, and he realized he was standing at his own crossroads, just like the desert roads outside. The desert wind howled outside, rattling the garage's metal walls as Eli lay on the couch. Lucas's number still tucked in his pocket. He couldn't stop thinking about San Francisco, the promise of freedom, of love without judgment. But Tom's quiet regret over Jake kept pulling him back, grounding him in Nogales. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving a crisp clarity in the air. Eli found Tom already working, his hands steady on a wrench, but his eyes tired. You sleep? Eli asked, grabbing a rag to help. Not much, Tom said. Storms make me think too much. Eli wanted to ask about Jake, but a customer interrupted, a burly man with a broken-down RV. The day was busy, filled with oil changes and tire patches. But Eli's mind was elsewhere. He kept stealing glances at his backpack, where Lucas's number waited like a ticket to another life. That afternoon, Mia, the purple-haired woman, returned with a flat tire. You're still here, she said to Eli, grinning. Thought you'd be halfway to San Francisco by now. Soon, Eli said, tightening a lug nut. Saving up. Mia leaned against her car, her eyes sharp. You got someone waiting for you there. Eli hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. A guy gave me his number. Mia's grin faded slightly. Just make sure he's worth it. Cities like that, they can dazzle you. But not everyone's real. Her words echoed Tom's warning, and Eli felt a knot in his stomach. He wanted to believe in Lucas, in the life he represented. But doubt crept in. What if Mia and Tom were right? What if San Francisco was just a dream that would crumble? That night, Eli called Lucas. The line crackled, but Lucas's voice was warm, like a lifeline. Eli, thought you forgot about me. Just checking in, Eli said, his heart pounding. How's San Francisco? Alive, Lucas said. You'd fit right in. There's a Pride event next month. You should come. Eli's chest ached with longing. I'm working on it. They talked for an hour about music, coffee shops, the Castro District's rainbow flags. Lucas was easy to talk to, his confidence infectious. But when Eli hung up, he felt Tom's eyes on him from across the garage. That the city boy? Tom asked, wiping his hands. Yeah, Eli said, bracing for another warning. Tom just nodded. Sounds like he's got you dreaming. Eli didn't respond. He didn't know how to explain the pull he felt toward Lucas, toward San Francisco, toward a life where he could walk hand in hand with someone and not look over his shoulder. But he also couldn't ignore the bond he'd formed with Tom, the man who'd given him a home when he had none. The next day, a letter arrived at the garage, addressed to Tom in shaky handwriting. Eli watched as Tom opened it, his face paling. It's from Jake, Tom whispered, his voice breaking. Eli's heart raced. What's it say? Tom's hands trembled as he read aloud. He's in Seattle. Says he's okay. But he doesn't want to see me. Says it hurts too much. Eli didn't know what to say. He saw his own pain in Tom's eyes. The ache of a father who'd lost his son to his own mistakes. You should write back, Eli said finally. Tell him you've changed. Tom shook his head. He won't believe me. Try, Eli urged. He deserves to know. Tom didn't respond, but he kept the letter close, tucking it into his pocket like a treasure. That night, Eli helped him draft a reply, pouring out words Tom couldn't say on his own. I'm sorry. I love you. I'll always be here. They mailed it the next morning, and Eli felt a strange pride, like he'd helped mend something broken. But the letter stirred something in Eli, too. He started to see Tom not just as a savior, but as a man haunted by his past. It made Eli question his own journey. Was he running towards San Francisco, or away from his father? Could he ever forgive the man who'd rejected him? Weeks passed, and Eli's savings grew $4.50 now, enough for a ticket and a cheap room. Lucas kept calling, each conversation pulling Eli closer to the city. But Tom's quiet support anchored him, too. One evening, as they worked late, Tom handed Eli a set of keys. For the garage, he said, in case I'm not here one day. Eli stared at the keys, his throat tight. You planning on going somewhere? Tom shrugged. Just want you to know this place is yours, too. You've earned it. The gesture hit Eli like a wave. He'd crossed a border to escape rejection, but found a home instead. Yet San Francisco still called, and Lucas's voice was a siren song. Eli felt torn, standing between two futures, one safe, one unknown. As he pocketed the keys, he knew a choice was coming, and it would change everything. Eli's dreams were a tangle of desert roads and city lights, his father's voice clashing with Lucas's laughter. He woke each morning with a heaviness he couldn't shake, the weight of a decision he wasn't ready to make. The garage felt like home, but San Francisco promised a life he'd always wanted. Tom noticed the change in Eli. You're quiet lately, he said one morning, handing Eli a wrench. City boy got you twisted up. Eli forced a smile. Just thinking. Tom didn't push, but his silence said enough. Eli knew Tom saw the conflict in him, the pull between staying and leaving. The garage was steady, safe, but Lucas's calls were a spark, igniting visions of pride parades and crowded bars where Eli could be himself without fear. One afternoon, Mia stopped by again, this time with a friend, a trans woman named Sarah, who wore confidence like armor. Heard you're San Francisco bound, Sarah said, her voice warm. You'll love it. But it's not all rainbows. Takes work to find your place. Eli nodded, her words hitting close. He'd romanticized the city, but Sarah's honesty grounded him. How do you know when you're ready? He asked. Sarah shrugged. You don't. You just go and figure it out. Her words stayed with Eli as he worked through the day. That night, he called Lucas again, the conversation flowing easily. Lucas talked about a bar he loved, a place where queer artists performed. You'd fit right in, Lucas said. You got a spark. Eli. Eli's heart swelled, but doubt lingered. Lucas was charming, but Mia's and Tom's warnings echoed. Was Lucas too good to be true? Eli pushed the thought away, focusing on the warmth in Lucas's voice. The next day, a new customer arrived, a man in his 30s, lean and quiet, with a beat-up sedan. His name was Carlos, and he watched Eli work with a familiarity that unsettled him. "You from Mexico?" Carlos asked, his accent thick. "Yeah," Eli said, guarded. "Why?" "Saw you at the bus station a while back," Carlos said. "Looked like you were running." Eli's stomach dropped. He remembered the Border Patrol truck, the fear of being caught. "Just starting over," he said, keeping his voice steady. Carlos nodded, but his eyes lingered. "Be careful out here. Not everyone's your friend." The warning felt like a shadow, following Eli through the week. He started noticing things: cars slowing near the garage, strangers lingering too long. Paranoia? Maybe. But Eli couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He told Tom about Carlos, and Tom's face hardened. "You see him again?" "You tell me," Tom said. "This town's small, but it's got its secrets." Eli's savings hit $500. Enough for a one-way ticket and a month's rent in a shared room. He could leave tomorrow if he wanted. But leaving meant saying goodbye to Tom, to the garage, to the strange family they'd built. And it meant trusting Lucas, a man he barely knew. One evening, as they closed the garage, Tom handed Eli a small envelope. Inside was $200 in cash. "For your trip," Tom said. "No strings." Eli's eyes stung. "I can't take this." "You can," Tom said. "You've earned it. And I want you to have what I couldn't give Jake." Eli clutched the envelope, his heart torn. Tom was giving him freedom, but it felt like losing something, too. That night, he wrote to Lucas. Not a call, but a letter, pouring out his fears and dreams. "I want to come, but I'm scared. What if it's not what I think?" Lucas's reply came 2 days later. A text: "It's not perfect, but it's real. Come find out." Attached was a photo of a San Francisco street, rainbow flags waving. Eli stared at it, his resolve hardening. But the next morning, Carlos returned. He didn't bring his car this time, just stood at the garage entrance, watching Eli. "You're leaving soon, aren't you?" Carlos said, his tone too knowing. Eli's pulse raced. "What's it to you?" Carlos stepped closer, lowering his voice. "People talk. They know you crossed the border. You think you're safe here." Eli's hands clenched. He wanted to run, to tell Tom. But Carlos was already backing away, his smile cold. "Just watch your back," Carlos said, then left. Eli told Tom everything. Tom's face was grim. "You stay close," he said. "We'll figure this out." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. Carlos's words, Lucas's promise, Tom's protectiveness, these swirled in his mind. He was so close to San Francisco, to the life he'd dreamed of. But danger felt closer than ever. He clutched the keys Tom had given him, wondering if he could leave this haven, or if the world beyond would break him. Fear clung to Eli like dust, settling into every thought. Carlos's warning had cracked open a paranoia he'd tried to bury. And now every stranger at the garage felt like a threat. He kept the keys Tom gave him in his pocket, a reminder of the safety he'd found in the life he might leave behind. Tom noticed the change. "You're jumpy," he said one morning, as Eli fumbled a wrench. "That guy's still bothering you?" Eli nodded, glancing at the garage entrance. "He knows too much. About me. About the border." Tom's jaw tightened. "If he shows up again, I'll handle it. You're not alone here." The words steadied Eli, but they couldn't erase the unease. He kept working, kept saving, his eyes always scanning the road. Lucas's texts kept coming, each one a lifeline to San Francisco. "Pride's in 3 weeks. You in?" Lucas wrote, and Eli's heart leaped at the thought. But Carlos's shadow loomed, and Eli wondered if he'd ever feel safe enough to leave. One afternoon, Mia and Sarah stopped by with coffee, their presence a welcome distraction. "You look like you need this," Mia said, handing Eli a cup. "What's got you so tense?" Eli hesitated, then told them about Carlos. Sarah's face darkened. "Sounds like trouble. You got papers?" Eli shook his head. He'd crossed the border illegally, a risk he'd taken for freedom. Sarah exchanged a look with Mia. "You need to be careful," Sarah said. "This town's small, and word travels." Eli's stomach churned. He'd thought Nogales was a stepping stone, not a trap. That night, he called Lucas, needing his voice to ground him. "I'm scared," Eli admitted. "Someone's watching me." Lucas's tone softened. "You don't have to stay there, Eli. Come to San Francisco. I'll help you figure things out." The offer was tempting, but Eli couldn't shake the image of Tom's face, the man who'd taken him in without question. Leaving felt like betraying him. "I'll think about it," Eli said, hanging up with a heavy heart. The next day, a new customer arrived, a woman named Rosa, who ran a local community center. She'd heard about Eli from Mia and offered him a part-time job helping with youth programs. "We need folks like you," she said. "Kids who feel different. They need to see someone who's made it through." Eli was floored. The idea of helping others, of being a role model, stirred something in him. He accepted, and the work gave him purpose. He taught kids to fix bikes, shared stories of his mother's courage, and found himself smiling more. But Carlos's threat still lingered, and Eli kept his savings hidden, his plans fluid. One evening, as Eli locked up the garage, he saw Carlos across the street, watching. Eli's heart pounded, but he didn't run. He stood his ground, staring back until Carlos turned away. When he told Tom grabbed a baseball bat from the back room. "He comes near you. He's done," Tom said, his voice fierce. Eli felt a surge of gratitude, but also guilt. Tom was risking himself for Eli, a kid he barely knew. That night, Eli wrote another letter to Lucas. This time more honest. "I want to come, but I'm scared of losing what I've found here. Tom's like family." Lucas's reply was quick. "Family's important, but so is being you. You can have both." The words hit hard, and Eli spent the night wrestling with them. Could he have both? Could he leave Tom and still hold on to the bond they'd built. The next morning, Rosa called Eli to the community center. She'd found a program in San Francisco that helped undocumented immigrants, offering legal aid and housing. "It's not easy," she said, "but it's a start. You could go. Be safe." Eli's heart raced. This was his chance, a real path to San Francisco. But as he looked at Tom, working quietly in the garage, he felt torn. Tom had given him a home, a purpose, a father's love. Leaving meant risking it all, but staying meant hiding from who he was. That night, Eli sat with Tom on the garage steps, the desert stars bright above. "I got an offer," Eli said. "A program in San Francisco. They can help me stay legally." Tom's face was unreadable, but his voice was soft. "You gotta go, kid. That's your dream." Eli's eyes burned. "What about you?" Tom smiled. "A rare, sad thing. I'll be here. And if you ever need me, you know where to find me." Eli nodded, clutching the keys in his pocket. He was closer than ever to San Francisco, but the thought of leaving Tom felt like losing a piece of himself. As he lay awake that night, he knew the choice was his and it would define his future. Eli's decision loomed like the desert horizon, endless, uncertain, and impossibly vast. The program in San Francisco was a lifeline, but leaving Tom felt like abandoning the only family he'd known since his mother's death. Each night, he traced the edges of Lucas's number, now worn from handling, and wondered if he was chasing a dream or running from reality. The garage was quieter now, as if it sensed Eli's restlessness. Tom kept his distance, giving Eli space to think, but his support was unwavering. One morning, as Eli swept the floor, Tom handed him a bus ticket. "San Francisco," Tom said. "Leaves in a week. If you want it." Eli stared at the ticket, his throat tight. "Why are you doing this?" Tom shrugged, but his eyes were soft. "Because you deserve a shot. I didn't give Jake one. I won't make that mistake again." The gesture broke something in Eli. He hugged Tom, a quick, fierce embrace that said more than words could. Tom patted his back, awkward but warm, and for a moment, Eli felt like a son again. But Carlos's shadow hadn't faded. Eli spotted him twice more, once near the community center, once outside the diner. Each time, Carlos's gaze was cold, calculating, like he was waiting for Eli to slip. Eli told Rosa, who promised to keep an eye out, but the fear gnawed at him. Was Carlos just a drifter, or something more dangerous? Eli threw himself into the community center, hoping work would drown out his doubts. He helped kids paint murals, their laughter easing his tension. One boy, Miguel, reminded Eli of himself, quiet, guarded, with eyes that held too much pain. "You ever feel like you don't belong?" Miguel asked one day, his voice small. "All the time," Eli admitted. "But you find people who make you feel like you do." Miguel smiled, and Eli realized he was talking about Tom, about the garage, about the unexpected home he'd found. But San Francisco still called, and Lucas's texts grew more urgent. "Pride soon. You coming? I want to meet you for real." Eli wanted to say yes, but Carlos's presence made him hesitate. He started carrying a pocket knife. A gift from Tom. Just in case. The weight of it was both comfort and reminder of the risks he faced. One evening, as Eli locked up the community center, Carlos appeared, stepping out of the shadows. "You're still here," Carlos said, his voice low. "Thought you'd be gone by now." Eli's hand went to the knife in his pocket. "What do you want?" Carlos smirked. "Just curious. You're a long way from home, kid. People notice." Eli's heart pounded, but he didn't back down. "I'm not your business." Carlos stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "You sure about that?" Before Eli could respond, headlights cut through the dark. Tom's truck pulled up, and Tom stepped out, his baseball bat in hand. "Get lost," Tom growled, his voice like thunder. Carlos raised his hands, backing away. "Easy, old man. Just talking." "Talk somewhere else," Tom said, stepping between Eli and Carlos. Carlos vanished into the night, but Eli's hands shook as he climbed into the truck. "You okay?" Tom asked, his voice softer now. Eli nodded, but he wasn't. The encounter had shaken him, made San Francisco feel both more urgent and more dangerous. He told Rosa the next day, and she contacted a friend in Border Patrol, who promised to look into Carlos. "He's probably just a creep," Rosa said, but her tone wasn't convincing. Eli spent the next few days on edge, jumping at every shadow. Lucas's texts were a lifeline, but even they couldn't erase the fear. "I'll be at the bus station when you get here," Lucas wrote. "You're not alone." The night before the bus was set to leave, Eli sat with Tom in the garage, the air heavy with unspoken words. "I'm scared," Eli admitted. "Not just of Carlos. Of everything." Tom nodded, his eyes on the floor. "Fear's part of it. But you're stronger than you know. You crossed a border for this. Don't stop now." Eli's eyes burned. "What if I mess it up? What if San Francisco isn't what I think?" "Then you come back," Tom said simply. "This garage ain't going anywhere." Eli laughed, a choked sound. He wanted to stay, to keep this safety, but he knew he couldn't. The next morning, he packed his backpack, the bus ticket heavy in his hand. Tom drove him to the station, the silence between them thick with emotion. As Eli boarded the bus, Tom grabbed his shoulder. "Your family, Eli. Always will be." Eli nodded, unable to speak. As the bus pulled away, he watched Tom's figure shrink in the distance, a piece of his heart staying behind in Nogales. The bus rumbled through the desert, each mile pulling Eli farther from Nogales and closer to San Francisco. He clutched his backpack, the weight of Tom's keys and Lucas's number anchoring him. The world outside blurred cacti, giving way to highways. Then city lights but inside. Eli's heart raced with hope and fear. San Francisco hit him like a wave. The air was cool, the streets alive with color and noise. Rainbow flags lined the Castro district, and Eli felt a thrill he'd never known. He was here, in the city he'd dreamed of, where he could be himself without hiding. Lucas met him at the bus station, his grin as bright as Eli remembered. "You made it," Lucas said, pulling Eli into a hug that felt both foreign and familiar. Eli's cheeks burned, but he didn't pull away. They walked through the city, Lucas pointing out bars, bookstores, and murals. "This is your place," Lucas said, his eyes sparkling. "You're free here." Eli wanted to believe it, but Carlos's warning lingered, and the city's chaos was overwhelming. Lucas took him to a small apartment, a shared space with two other queer roommates, Alex and Jamie. They welcomed Eli with warmth, offering him a couch until he could join the program Rosa had found. The next day, Lucas took Eli to the community center running the aid program. A counselor named Priya explained the process: legal aid, housing support, job training. "It's a lot," she said, "but we'll get you through it." Eli nodded, overwhelmed but grateful. He started the paperwork, his hands shaking as he wrote his real name, the one his father had rejected. Lucas stayed by his side, his presence a steady comfort. But the city wasn't all dreams. Eli noticed the cost of everything: coffee, rent, even bus fare. His $500 wouldn't last long, and the program's support was months away. Lucas offered to help, but Eli refused, pride and fear mixing. He didn't want to owe anyone, not after Tom's selfless support. At night, Eli lay on the couch, listening to the city's hum. He missed the quiet of the garage, Tom's steady presence. He wrote to Tom a long letter about the city, the program. "Lucas, I'm here, but I miss you. You were right, I am stronger than I thought." Lucas took Eli to a pride event, a street festival bursting with music and color. Eli danced, laughed, felt alive in a way he'd never known. Lucas grabbed his hand, pulling him through the crowd. And for a moment, Eli forgot his fears. But when they stopped at a bar, Lucas's charm faltered. He drank too much, his words sharp, his attention drifting to others. "You okay?" Eli asked, unease creeping in. Lucas waved it off. "Just having fun. Relax, Eli." But Eli couldn't relax. He saw Tom's warning in Lucas's recklessness, Mia's caution in his fleeting glances. Was this the freedom he'd crossed a border for? He left the bar alone, wandering the streets until dawn, his heart heavy. The next day, Priya called with news. His application was moving forward. But there was a catch. They'd found a record of his illegal crossing. "It's not a deal breaker," she said, "but it complicates things. You need to stay low. Avoid trouble." Eli's stomach dropped. Carlos's face flashed in his mind, and he wondered if trouble had followed him. He told Lucas, hoping for support, but Lucas brushed it off. "You're fine. Just don't get caught." The dismissal stung. Eli started to see cracks in Lucas's charm, his promises too big, his attention too fleeting. He thought of Tom, who'd never made promises he couldn't keep. Eli wrote to Tom again, confessing his doubts. "I thought this was home, but I'm not sure anymore." A week later, a letter arrived from Tom. "You're finding your way, kid. Trust yourself. I'm proud of you." Enclosed was a photo of the garage, Tom standing by the sign, a small smile on his face. Eli's eyes stung. He missed Tom, missed the safety of Nogales. That night, Eli confronted Lucas. "Are you serious about me?" Or am I just here? He asked, his voice steady despite his fear. Lucas hesitated, his grin faltering. You're great, Eli, but I'm not looking for anything heavy. The words hit like a punch. Eli nodded, walking away without another word. He'd crossed a border for love. But Lucas wasn't it. As he sat alone, staring at Tom's photo, he realized the real love he'd found was in Nogales with a stranger who'd become a father. Eli sat on the apartment's couch, Tom's letter in his hands, the weight of his journey settling into his bones. San Francisco was everything he'd dreamed: vibrant, open, alive, but it wasn't home. Not yet. Lucas's rejection had stung, but it had also clarified what Eli truly wanted, not just freedom, but connection. He threw himself into the aid program, attending meetings, filling out forms, and working odd jobs to survive. Priya became a mentor, guiding him through the legal maze. You're resilient, she told him one day. Most would have given up. Eli didn't feel resilient. He felt like a kid, lost between worlds. But he kept going, driven by Tom's belief in him and the memory of his mother's strength. He wrote to Tom weekly, sharing stories of the city, the program, the people he met. Tom's replies were short but steady, each one a reminder that Eli had a home to return to. One evening, at a community center event, Eli met Javier, a quiet artist with a gentle smile. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their past. Javier's coming out, Eli's journey from Mexico. Unlike Lucas, Javier didn't dazzle. He listened, his presence grounding. When Javier asked Eli to a coffee shop, Eli said yes, his heart cautious but open. Their coffee dates became a routine, each one peeling back layers of Eli's guarded heart. Javier didn't push, didn't promise the world. He just showed up, steady and kind, like Tom. One night, as they walked through the Castro, Javier took Eli's hand. Eli didn't pull away. For the first time, he felt seen, not as a dream or a project, but as himself. But the fear of his legal status lingered. Priya warned him that his case was stalled. Immigration officials were cracking down, and his illegal crossing was a red flag. Eli started noticing men in suits near the community center, their eyes too sharp. He wondered if Carlos had followed him, or if his paranoia was winning. One night, Eli called Tom, needing his voice. I'm trying, Eli said, his voice breaking. But I'm scared I'll get sent back. Tom's voice was steady. You're not going back. You've got people fighting for you. And if you need me, I'll come get you. The words anchored Eli. He realized Tom wasn't just a father figure, he was family. The kind Eli had thought he'd lost forever. He told Javier about Tom, about the garage, about the man who'd saved him. Javier listened, then said, he sounds like a real dad. Eli nodded, his throat tight. He is. Months passed, and Eli's case moved forward, slowly but surely. Javier stayed by his side, their bond growing into something real, something worth fighting for. One day, Priya called with news. Eli's application for asylum had been approved. He was legal, free to stay, to build a life. Eli cried, relief flooding him. He called Tom, who laughed, a rare, joyful sound. Told you. Kid. You're stronger than you know. Eli knew what he had to do. He bought a bus ticket back to Nogales. Not to stay, but to see Tom. To thank him. Javier came with him. Their hands linked as the desert rolled by. When they reached the garage, Tom was waiting, his eyes bright with pride. Eli hugged him, tears falling. You saved me, he whispered. Tom shook his head. You saved yourself. I just gave you a couch. They spent the day together. Eli introducing Javier. Tom telling stories of Jake. As they sat on the garage steps, the desert sky blazing above, Eli felt whole. He'd crossed a border to come out, to find himself, and he'd found Maury a father in a stranger. A love that was real. A home in two places. Eli returned to San Francisco with Javier, ready to build a life. He kept Tom's keys, a reminder of the man who'd shown him what family meant. And when he walked through the Castro, hand in hand with Javier, he carried Tom's love, his mother's strength, and his own courage, a boy rejected by his father, who'd found a real dad in a stranger, and a future worth fighting for.